One of my favorite moments harvesting with my family, my oldest daughter, Mazzy, was a little over a year old. And I remember her just like army crawling into the bush and like laying down on her belly and just eating all the wild strawberries directly off the ground. And I thought, she's come into this world with that teaching sort of baked in to like get close to the ground and feel confident enough to pick a wild strawberry right off the mat of the huckleberry meadows and eat it like royalty. You know, she was just like, this is what I do. She's totally into it. This is the summer season. Breathe deep, take it in, let that season warm your bones, and then imagine reaching out and collecting a sun-ripened berry on a hot summer day. That is what this episode is all about. We're going to be talking about berry medicine, why it's good for you, the history of it, the reverence we all have for it. It's truly a gift that these sensational flavors exist for us in the wild, but also berries and their medicine and their flavors can be found in common grocery stores. It's often an overlooked fact that berries like blueberry and strawberry and raspberry and blackberry are some of the first foods of this continent and have fed people for thousands of years. In fact, many of our creation stories involve berries. I think about the Sky Woman and her relationship to strawberry. After her daughter passed away and they buried her, strawberries grew from her heart, and so we call it the heartberry, the heart medicine. I think about the Coast Salish creation story where Snoqual says the fire children will take care of the berries so that they can feed those who are yet to come. And in the 13 moons all across this country, our tribes have always lifted up berries in this season. Anishinaabe has the strawberry moon. Here in the Northwest, we have the moon of the blackberry season and the moon of Salal. Those lunar calendars have directed us for thousands of years and really inspired people to move through the land based on what was available at the time. And so it's telling of how celebrated these berries are by an entire society organizing themselves and naming this time of year and an entire moon cycle around a food. So it's time that we do that as well, lift up that teaching. So let's talk about living the berry way life. How do we bring this into our life in a more modern context, in a more modern version and way, especially when 70% of Native people are now living in urban areas? How do we get involved? Where do we find these spaces? I would encourage you to just, start simple. You don't have to create perfect rows of blueberries. You can just go plant a bush in your front yard. You can get some raspberries and stick them in a bucket and a barrel and plant them in your own space and have that be your celebration to your return to getting your hands busy doing things that our ancestors are going to recognize you doing. We want to transmit these recipes through generations, and part of that is being able to identify the berry and when it's ready and celebrating it and knowing what its flavor profile is. You can really be that person in your community. And I often get asked this question of, like, how do we bring all these foods back? And I think when we start considering all of the foods that could be set on the table, we might get a little overwhelmed. But we have a teaching here that you don't teach all your children all the same thing. Everybody has a special role. This child is going to be the berry picker. That one loves to fish. This one can make the most perfect elk call. And so you cultivate those gifts in them, and that way they will need each other in the future. So maybe you just choose to be a blueberry person and bring those to every event and set them on the table, and you're just known to be that person, Pick one and then commit to it and be an advocate and a steward for it. I think one of the most impactful moments I've had in harvesting berries is really realizing the depth of history that we have in those berry patches. It's not just like we're out there stumbling around finding berries. Like you go journey to this place and you harvest in this area because you know that the berries are good there at that time of year. You've developed a relationship. It has personhood to you. I was out harvesting with a woman who had done a lot of history and research, and she'd said there are archaeological dig sites up in these areas that show evidence of your ancestors harvesting berries and then smoke drying them on these logs. And it's dated back between 4,000 to 5,000 years ago. Think about that. That's like woolly mammoths were walking through the land at that time. Rome wasn't even a dream. Like the Colosseum and all these physical structures that we see and give so much awe and wonder to in the world, my ancestors were doing something very similar as far as taking care of a place, establishing a relationship with it, long before all of those things. I think it's really important to point out that relationship that we have with these berry patches has often been overlooked. And I hear stories of families who are grieving the loss of these spaces that they've harvested and maintained for generations because they are sort of the first thing that gets like cut down and paved over and developed. Because there's just this like segment of time when people are out and active in those spaces, it may seem as if they're not cared for or tended to, or, you know, something that could just go to the wayside. We call this experience an invisible loss, that development has just sort of stepped over these very special places that people have developed relationships with for so many years. And that has encouraged this severing of us being active on the landscape during these times of years and sort of moving more into how easy it can be to just go buy the berries from the store, right? There's something really special about going out and harvesting berries versus going to the grocery store and purchasing them. There's a different experience. One is very transactional. Like I show up to the store, I buy the berries, I give the guy money, I go home and I eat them, versus being out in a huckleberry meadow or a strawberry patch. Or for me, my favorite is thimbleberry. So I've got a couple of secret patches that I go to for just the thimbleberries. And harvesting with my family, with my daughters, with my mother, my partner, and then remembering to set some aside and bring them back home to people who, for whatever reason, couldn't make it out to harvest those berries, and that they get that flavor. I think that whole experience to me is less transactional and more transformational. We're able to build memories and remember like that last year when we went out and, you know, so-and-so was running through the thicket and fell down and we could smell the bear in the meadow next door to us, and everybody had paranoia for the rest of the day. Like all of those memories are so thrilling and I think feed us on a deeper level than what we commonly experience. So getting our hands stained with those berry juices, eating that like sensational flavor in the heat of the summer season helps us to remember those moments of joy and those memories that we've built together as a family. And so for me, I feel this like call every year to make sure to relive that experience, to have it again, to feed myself in that level, because this is the season. Typically, Coast Salish families would eat strawberries this time of year, these wild strawberries that are about like a ½ inch in diameter. They're super tiny, like the tip of your pinky finger, and have so much flavor. They're more flavorful than those like big meaty ones that you get at the grocery store. And that's part because of the process. Those big commercial grown strawberries are often picked before they're fully ripe because they're trying to get to market in a timely fashion. So you're not eating something that tastes super old and soggy. But a ripened berry right off the vine actually has more nutrition in it and has way more flavor because all of that medicine and that sugar has been given time to really bake up in the sun. Like, find your local community garden or get a barrel and plant some in them on your patio or your front porch. Just start small, and then maybe start taking some hikes and some plant ID books with you and go out and search. I noticed that I've been staring at screens so often that my eyes probably miss looking at nature. And so I've been spending more time just like sitting outside, staring at trees or staring at the berries, feeling my eyes readjust to something that that we deep down recognize. And so I think we can do that by just spending more time in nature. Our human wants to be curious and wants to innovate and create. And we can create these new pathways by staring into nature and learning to read the landscape and recognizing, oh, that's the thimbleberry over there. And that white flower is going to become a beautiful, juicy strawberry soon. And I got to come back and visit it and see what it looks like then. I wanted to let you know that we're now on Patreon, and our patrons can download exclusive content like our seasonal meditations and recipes and so much more content to come. You can also like us on Instagram, and if you haven't found us yet, try us out on YouTube, where you can view the entire episode and all of these cooking demonstrations and how-tos. Louie's grandma Bernice, who we love very much, she would pack up her station wagon and drive to the mountains, and she wouldn't leave until she met her berry quota. Like, she'd be out there camping, sometimes 1-2 weeks. She'd be gone. I think about that now. I don't think I could pull that off. You know what I mean? The stamina. But she was also always encouraging him to harvest fast, to like get out there and get busy. This is work. Like we've got huckleberries to bring home to these people, and they need to make it through the entire year. Walking into harvesting with that kind of intention, I think, helps to make sure that what you're getting is good quality and good medicine that's really going to feed people in those deeper, more nourishing ways. If you're wanting to practice the honorable harvest while you're out, of course, always like thinking about how you might share this harvest, this blessing that you're getting, with other people that might need that medicine. And so you want to pick for them, and you'll receive those blessings by just being there. Say a prayer, make an offering, make it look like you were never there. We're practicing the art of noticing first, right? So if you're out harvesting blackberries and there's one over here that almost looks like it's been sprayed, or you're by the side of a road, I would discourage you from harvesting in those spaces. Find a patch that is away from a road, at least 100 feet off of the side of the road, where all the hydrocarbons are flying off and that ditch water with all the brake fluid and stuff is feeding those berries. We don't want to be eating from that type of patch, because we are eating the fertilized ovary of a flower. That's the berry. And so it's full of that nutrition that an ovary would give, So that means it's pulling up all those nutrients from the soil. It's collecting the photosynthesis process from the sun, and it's developing this beautiful fruit for us to eat. So it can also contain some of the stuff that's in the ground that it's growing in. Some people say it's nice to harvest right after the dew kind of, burns off in the morning. And then I've had elders that are like, the best time to harvest is the time you have. We just want you to get out there and be active. Getting a sort of like a flatter basket so that they're not all smashing each other down. We also bring a cooler with us so that, as soon as we fill up our basket, we can put it in the cooler and keep it cold as fast as possible. And then we'll bring it home and put them in the fridge. It's always important, too, when you're harvesting, to remember that you have to go home and process those things, and you need the proper space to store it. Yes, we're harvesting while these foods are ripe and at their peak vitality. And we also want to store some away for the winter. So when it's dark and gray outside every day, we can pop open that, jar of jam or the gallon of frozen berries in your freezer and remember that summer is going to come again. so that there's hope in some of the darker times of the season, if that affects you. If I were bringing a batch of berries home to freeze, I would lay them out on a cookie sheet and then stick them in the freezer overnight or for a few hours till they get a little bit more hardened. And then I'll pour them off into a Ziploc bag that's for freezers and store them that way. How do we want to show up in this space? What kind of relationship do we want to have with berries? And how rewarding it is to return to a patch the next year and see how it's doing, where it's at in its growth cycle. It's so exciting. You're just like, I missed you. I haven't seen you in a while. When I moved to the Muckleshoot Reservation, where I live now, at the base of Mount Rainier, Tahoma, the trail system from that meadow goes right in front of my house. And nearby is an old site that's known as the House of Blueberries. And, quite often we have these old archaeological sites around our area that are called the House of Salmon Nation or the House of Elk. Very few have been identified as plant homes. And so I was really excited to be a plant person living near something called the House of Blueberries. And this place is really special because there are lots of artifacts that show things like pieces of obsidian that are sourced from Southern Oregon. They're all tools that are used to process and preserve the harvest. It's a good reminder that while this is the center of the universe that I know, we were also very well connected along the entire Pacific Coast Trail, what we call the Pacific Coast Trail now. So while our foods were local, we moved through the land and we traded long distances. So those obsidian shards, don't show up very often, and here they are at the base of this beautiful mountain that provides so much food for us. We were really inspired with our land to plant some blueberries in honor of the House of Blueberries and moved fast, made a pretty quick decision to buy a lot of blueberries, about 4,000 plants to be exact, and then spent the last several years just really struggling trying to figure out how to get them in the ground in a good way. It's a lot of hard work. And how do we create a system where we show up in it and intervene in a way that creates more abundance? That's our whole method and approach to this, which is how our ancestors have always managed and maintained the lands. So we're inspired by that, but also really reckoning with the reality of how hard that work truly is and how much wisdom it takes to really show up in those spaces in a good way. So looks like we got a lot of blueberries coming though. So we'll be out harvesting for sure in the next couple of weeks. The plan for the harvest this year for our blueberry field is to harvest as much as we can and donate it to the Muckleshoot Tribal School, our preschool, any summer school programs. I also have a large juicer that we're going to juice as much berries as we need to and bottle it and bring it down to the tribe as well. So we're giving it all away. We also recognized that there's so much medicine in blueberries. A lot of, really great research is coming out more and more every single day about blueberry juice, blueberry extract, how important it is to your blood vessels in your body. They're anti-carcinogens, like they can help in cancer treatments as something that helps really stack up and complement medicine so that you can succeed in your journey. And that to me seemed like, a good enough reason to to become a blueberry farmer because I wanted enough to be able to harvest and share all that medicine with my community and people who are deeply affected by nutrition-related disparities that, just need more access to blueberries and something fresh and local and that honors the place that we're in. So it made sense to me to just, plant 4,000 shrubs. So in our area, we actually have 2 blackberries. One is this Himalayan blackberry that's considered an invasive, and this might surprise you, but I don't love all plants, and that's one of the arch nemesis category that I have, only because I'm constantly fighting with it, trying to take over my medicine garden. But our native blackberry actually grows really low to the ground, and it sends out these little we call them tripwires. Like if you're ever hiking or running in the Northwest and you fall, it's probably the wild blackberry having a good laugh because it just tripped you up. We have an entire moon that is devoted to the blackberries. It typically happens in July. So if you're in the area in the Northwest, keep your eye out for some trailing tripwires on the forest floor. Again, the vitamin C. the fiber and the antioxidants, but it also has this astringent quality to it that can really help heal up guts that are feeling really wibbly wobbly, aka diarrhea, if you've got a bad case of it. And even drinking blackberry leaf tea is going to help tighten up that inflamed tissue and make you feel better. So there's some fun medicine for you around a different type of berry that is just as prolific and just as easy to grow in our area. It's not just the berries that have the medicine, the leaf also has medicine. So you can harvest strawberry leaf from spring through late summer, dry it and make a tea out of it. It's incredibly mineral rich, it's high in iron. Strawberry leaf tea is one of the first things we give women after having given birth because it helps to replenish their strength, give them that iron push, and invigorates the uterus to help encourage it to shrink back down to its normal size, and sends medicine to the blood vessels in our body, so our veins and our arteries that need that healing after, doing this really hard thing like growing a human. You need support and help. And so strawberry leaf tea is great for that. But you can also harvest raspberry leaf, and it gives you the same medicine, the same benefits. It's so aligned with women's health. It's really interesting how even the creation stories always identify a woman's relationship with things like strawberry or blackberry or huckleberry. They just have this affinity to women and upholding women's health. So drink berry tea and berry leaf tea and eat the berries. I also just want to remind you that it's important when you're preparing a tea to spend the time to dehydrate the leaf. And there are reasons for that. When you are putting a fresh strawberry leaf in water, there's this thing called osmosis. Like water can't really do its thing to pull the medicine out of the leaf because the water's already in the leaf. So what you want to do is harvest it, maybe put it in a paper bag and lay it on its side and flip it over every day until it gets good and dry. Or there are lots of harvesting baskets that you can get at Goodwill for $1. They're flat, they're round. So you just put the leaf on there and let it dry out it usually takes 4 to 6 days. But that dehydration process cracks open those cell walls. So when you put it in water, my teachers say it's like the plant comes back to life one last time to give up its medicine. That water is rushing into the plant cell and it's pulling out the medicine and making it available in the water, in that cup of tea that you're drinking. So the dehydration process is actually really important to be able to pull that medicine out and make it really available to your body. And then the good news is you drink that cup of tea and there's no mystery on am I taking the right calcium supplement? Am I taking the right iron supplement? You're just getting that medicine right in that cup of tea. Your body doesn't have to work hard for it at all. As a nutritionist, when I think about berries, their nutrition, what they offer, how they nourish us, the top 3 things would be vitamin C, which is great for building our immune systems. Our internal armor of our immunity needs to be fortified all the time. And they have different components and phytochemicals in them that help to stabilize inflammation in the body, like quercetin, that actually helps us deal with seasonal changes and what's going on around us. I personally have allergies during the season, so the berries are my remedy for that. So vitamin C, fiber. Fiber is really good for all kinds of reasons, right? It helps our body to digest and absorb sugars at a safe rate, so we're not experiencing these blood sugar spikes. And that's why berries are actually really great for diabetics. It's one of the only varieties of fruits that does not raise your blood sugar. It actually can help stabilize and balance your blood sugar. And they're also high in antioxidants. We hear testimony all the time. In fact, we have a relative in our family that lived to be over 108 years old, and her claim to longevity was eating traditional foods. If you went and visited her, she'd sit you down and give you a spoonful of cod liver oil, and you'd eat a big bowl full of berries together because they're high in antioxidants, and antioxidants are anti-agers. So they're helping to clear your body of all the natural free radicals that we create or are exposed to in the day. They help detoxify gently and help build up your internal strength and stamina. The cultural teaching around berries, to me, feels pretty similar. It's really about joy and love and reciprocity. In fact, there's a really cool story that the Cherokee tell about the first man and the first woman having a fight. And she was so mad, she walked away, and the sun was trying to slow her down by putting some berry patches in front of her. And she walked past the huckleberries and walked past the raspberries and walked past the blackberries. But she got to the strawberries and decided to take one and eat it. And when she ate it, that flavor reminded her of the love that she felt for the first man. And she was able to find the forgiveness that she needed. So it feeds our spirit, love, and joy, and helps us to remember reciprocity. And that's powerful. That's powerful nourishment, just as significant and important as like vitamin C and fiber and antioxidants are, right? We also need that joy, that love, and that reciprocity to stand in this world.
HFCIA Stobayotso Tidsta, Atsil Tabutsta, Thomas Williams Tidsta, Patsa. Good morning. My name is Thomas Williams. My Indian name is Stobayotso. We're here at the Lushootseed Language Camp, and you are about to hear səswix, Martha Lamont's berry picking song. Lushootseed language attendees, the youth, sang səswix's berry picking song, and səswix was Martha Lamont, and she is our Snohomish ancestor. She was a Snohomish descendant, and she was one of the few that left us the Lushootseed language in the Snohomish dialect. So the kids did a really good job this morning singing the berry picking song before they started their language camp. And we felt that it would be important to say where the song comes from. So Martha Lamont lived here in Tulalip and was married to Levi Lamont. So we're actually really, really fortunate to have this song because it comes from a true Snohomish descendant. She was in the middle of recording Snohomish dialect for our linguist Tom Hess that was here. And I was telling the kids earlier this week, when they were nervous to sing the song, like how lucky we are to have an ancestor that left us a song. because there's many of us that go without having that privilege or that great opportunity. So throughout the week, trying to get these kids to learn the song so they can sing it for their family, but also to understand how great of an opportunity they have to be able to sing this song.
And so let's talk more about that with our special guest today, Colleen Echohawk, who's a dear friend of mine, a colleague, and has so much joy to share around berries and community, and really also deeply nourishing ourselves. Colleen, welcome to the Old Growth Table. Thank you so much for being here. I can't wait to get into talking with you about berries and all the joy that they bring into our lives.
So glad to be here. So excited to talk about berries. Not a more exciting conversation could be had in Seattle right now.
Exactly. It's the
so
season.
fun.
It's the time. How could we not talk about it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I have to do my formal job here and read your beautiful bio because there's so many things that you are. Colleen Echohawk is a born organizer, change maker, and leader. Her experiences as an Indigenous woman, small business owner, community organizer, and executive leader inform her efforts in building a community of justice and reconciliation. An enrolled member of the Kithiaki Band of Pawnee Nation and a member of the Upper Athabascan people of Mentasta Lake, Colleen is proud to have called Seattle home for over 2 decades. She's a champion for change, igniting successful coalitions to bring about positive shifts in Seattle's housing, homelessness, racial justice, sustainability, and public safety issues. Colleen is committed to service as the executive director of so many things in your history. there's Chief Seattle Club, the CEO of 8th Gen, and now you're working for
the Seattle Indian Service Commission. Yes, interim executive director. Yeah.
I want to start with saying how I met you. It was a period of time where I was this traveling plant lady, going around to Native communities and teaching about plants. At the time, you're working for a Native health organization really focused on cancer care.
Oh, that's right.
For
I
Native
was trying to
people.
remember what it was too. Okay,
Yeah.
That's a long time ago.
Yeah, and I remember just, to know Colleen is to understand the enthusiasm that you bring into every space that you're in. And I get really excited about things too, especially like plants and being with people I love.
And that was what your nettle. You will always be a nettle woman, but I was enamored by the nettle too. I was like, oh my gosh, you were just a buzz and a glow with nettle.
Yeah.
Oh,
I know.
I'm so glad to be here.
You and your sister Abi were both working at that organization at the time. I remember in that moment being like, this person is going to be a friend forever. This is somebody that's I need to be in her corner. And then we worked on the Indigenous work group for the redesign of the Seattle waterfront together.
Right. Yeah.
And this is where you came into mind as well. It was part of the outcome of that. So many beautiful things. If you haven't seen the new Seattle waterfront, you have to come down and check it out. There's a beautiful native berry garden on the rooftop of the Seattle Aquarium's new Ocean Pavilion.
I haven't actually seen it in full bloom. I'll have to go down there and look at it.
Yeah, so, I just did it for the first time.
I think when we were planning that piece, it was just this idea that, your everyday person in Seattle, and then also tourists and people who are coming through there should have the opportunity to engage with the original plants and also the animals that are down in that space. And so it makes me really happy to think about that. And hopefully they're getting to pluck only one berry. Because I actually, when we get there, I've got a little something to say about people harvesting berries in our parks in Seattle.
What are some exercises that you think about
So we live very near Carkeek Park. There's a lot of salmonberry there. I feel very connected to that berry, and so do my kids. What is really a bummer for me is that I've been up there before and I'll see people with their little berry bucket, which great. You know what? We should all learn how to forage, and I think it's a really great thing. But I will see people just strip the bushes. My hope is that people will learn how to enjoy them, but then think about the people that are coming behind them. So.
Yeah, it's making it seem like you were never there. Yeah. That's the golden rule, right?
Yes. I'm an optimist, and I feel like people just don't know right? Like they don't realize like they don't have the teachings, right? And so it's important for us to like teach and encourage people to, yes, enjoy them and get those good nutrients, because it does feel good. I just love getting to go out there with my kids and my husband and my dog. The dog is not allowed to eat the berries, so she's over there getting like stung by nettles. She needs it because she's wild.
I've heard so many fun stories about your naughty dog.
She's a naughty dog. I love her so much.
Thank you for reminding me about salmonberry, because we have not actually talked about it in this episode. And there is a moon of salmonberry, which, the teaching is interconnectedness. There's so many environmental indicators. Salmonberry reminds us of 5 nations of salmon, because there are 5 different shades, I should say, of salmonberry, from that ruby red to this like sort of neutral peachy color. And they look like salmon eggs, they kind of have that vibe to them. And this black butterfly pollinates them. And that black butterfly reminds us to start preparing for our first salmon ceremony. So there's just this like really special connection to plants and fish and the center of our world here.
Also just predictor of what the salmon harvest is going to be. We know like salmon is crucial for the planet to continue existing. So it's always sort of like, I mean, there's been some years when I've been up there and it's like, wow, the salmonberry is not abundant. And you feel kind of like, oof. But then you see it other years and you're like, okay, like, and so it gives hope. It causes you to, think a little bit about like our own responsibility and what we're, how I'm contributing to climate justice. So it's just a beautiful story. I hope you write a book about just salmonberry someday.
Only salmonberry.
Just salmonberry.
Just a really obnoxious amount of information. I just keep going back to conversations with you about blueberries. Do you have any fun stories to share with us?
Well, blueberries were always a big part of my life because when I was growing up in rural Alaska, we spent a lot of time picking berries growing up. And I look back on that with just such fond memories because we lived next door to this other Native family, which was a blessing. And we would go down to, we lived on Mullins Road in rural Alaska. And at the end of Mullins Road was like a field that had been cleared, but there's lots of blueberries down there, and we called it our blueberry patch. And we would go down there, and our parents would say, well, be really loud so, you scare away the bears. And that was just like, okay, and down we go. And we were
totally normal thing to say to a child.
I look back on it now, I'm like, that was crazy. But we never interacted with a bear, thank goodness. And we were very loud. There was about 10 of us, and we would just spend so much time down there. The thing you say when you're conversing about berries and you're picking is, oh, I got a big one. Or, look at this big one. It's so cool. And, because the berries, wild Alaska blueberries are really pretty small because of the growing season and how cold it gets. But when I was growing up, I don't really remember years where it wasn't abundant. I feel like there always is this abundance of blueberries, and we'd pick and pick and pick, and we'd eat a lot of them, and we'd hang out and talk, and then we'd come home, and our parents would, we'd have to clean them. And I think there's way better cleaning techniques now. Like we used to just pour them out on this towel and then pick through them. I don't think that was pretty effective, but then we would freeze them. Alaskans, non-native and native alike, there's a lot of people just have blueberries in your freezer during the winter months when it's cold and there's not a lot of fresh food around. Those, taking those out of the freezer just reminded us of those really wonderful moments we had throughout the summer of harvesting and feeling that good feeling of taking that berry off of that bush and then putting it in your mouth, and just it feels like you're caring for yourself, but you're also caring for the community because the community is just all around us.
What better excuse to gather together as a people as being in a berry patch, dodging bears.
Oh yeah, dodging those
a little
bears.
Bit of thrill
Be
involved.
loud when you're talking about that.
I think that there's this societal shift into really asking ourselves, how far have we been disconnected from the source of our food, and how much does that truly impact us as a community and a society? And that's our opportunity really to just think about nourishment as more than just vitamins and minerals, and push more towards that calling of community collective, and that's what we need now more than ever, is to feel that we're part of a whole that has the same direction forward, and that's really prioritizing the future. I mean, that's something that Native people have always were very futuristic, even when I think we are often thought of as conservative or in the past or something like that, but no, we're constantly innovating and thinking forward.
That's one of the things I like to beat my drum about too. It's like, no, Native people, we always have evolved or fought off things that we thought we should, but once we've, we're pragmatic, like, okay, well, this is the situation. How do we make the best of it for our communities?
I was thinking about the food action plan and just really wanting to say, like, that came out of a policy work group that really you led, the food sovereignty strategy for the city of Seattle, and that became this food action plan.
I don't think I did that.
Yes, you did.
Oh, did I? Okay. I don't remember. Well, and just in general, like, we know that, like, policy impacts the way that we do and live. There are food deserts in this community, in our communities, and how do we ensure that policy is going to start moving the resources in the right direction is just incredibly crucial for the future. I'm a very hopeful person, and this is a time that is, it's harder to be hopeful right now for me, but I do believe in the power of community and people so much. And as we see these policy shifts happening and we see more resources going into communities that have been under-resourced, so specifically around food, I think that the impact is going to be just so, I don't think we even know how big it's going to be.
Well, thank you so much for being a guest on the show and coming to see me.
I like
feel
you so much.
lucky.
I'll do whatever you're doing. Whatever
Same.
you're doing, I want to do it. This podcast is so special and so wonderful, and I think it's going to have a wonderful impact on people.
Thank you.
The berry
Thank
is
you very much.
Incredible gift to all of us.
Next, we'll be hearing the poem written by Abi Echohawk, Colleen's sister, and another really good friend of mine. I'm so excited for you to hear it.
I was raised by the spruce, my skin tasting of sticky, bitter sap. I was healed by the birch, held in fragile pieces stitched together. I was taught patience with the cranberry, crouched on the ground, fingers touching green leaves. I am the peace and the strength of the river, held in a mother's first water. I am the resilience of a blueberry, surviving, thriving, ever continuing. I am my mother's daughter, my sister's sister, my grandmother's granddaughter. In the songs they whispered through my tears, these songs I sing today, tomorrow, and yesterday. For my children's children, for their children's children. For them, I sing.
Getting back to that place, getting back outside in the summer season with your family, developing those memories, growing new berry patches. That's the thing about these plants. They're native here, so they grow really well. You don't have to do a whole lot of doting. In our teachings, the more you harvest, actually, the more berries come the next year. It's like the plant encourages and invigorates itself for the next year's season. And we're so lucky here. We have tons of different types and varieties of berries. So if one season the strawberries aren't doing so well, maybe you harvest blackberry instead. So we have this sort of selection to pull from, and getting to know when those berries ripen and what time of year they're in, and reestablishing that relationship with these berry patches is really part of us returning to a diet that's more reminiscent of what we know, what we recognize, and what really truly feeds us and has for a long time.